Happy Freaky Friday from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. That is Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. We talked plenty about the quarterbacks, but we have way more takeaways to get to. So this is going to have to be a non-quarterback takeaway show. All right, let's get to everything else. Bill, I wonder where we might possibly begin.
We're gonna begin in the trenches. We're gonna begin up front. So we talked a lot about Tegra coming into camp, and then at some point I wanted to keep a more open mind about Carson Hinsman like being in that competition, and I think he is in the competition. I don't want that to come off the wrong way. But then I left Thursday sort of back on the Tegra train. The Tegra Shabola, who has this illness, has kind of gone through the offensive line room.
Except for him.
And has now, I guess, dissipated. He was never really impacted by it. And he has not missed a rep, I think is the way that Chip Kelly put it. And in doing so has looked pretty good and not missing those reps. It just seems like he is stacking that good day on good day on good day to the point where maybe there may just not be enough opportunity for Carson Hinsman to do that because Carson Hinsman has missed some time. So I came away from Thursday feeling pretty strongly now that Tegra Shabola is going to be the starting right guard.
I think Ryan Day was encouraging you to feel that way on Thursday. And by the way, when it comes to that illness, if you can see it behind us, this is where the offensive line has been meeting. It's got a very 2020 vibe to it. And
I don't like it.
There were some bad feelings about seeing it, but that is, if you thought we might have been exaggerating what Ohio State was going through a week ago or even back to the first day of camp when Carson Hinsman was out, this illness was running pretty rampant and it was making things difficult for them. So they did space, Ohio State did space out the offensive linemen. They've been meeting out here on the indoor practice field, but it does sound like they're getting towards the end of that. They're starting to, incorporate back in Carson Hinsman into that mix, but it sounds like Tegra Shabola, Seth McLaughlin, that's going to be the group there.
The praise for Seth McLaughlin was pretty encouraging.
Most consistent
offensive lineman throughout camp is what he was called. We did have a commenter in the live stream on Thursday who was asking if we were in like a bizarro world because you asked about quarterbacks and I asked about offensive line. They were a little bit confused, but
me too.
Like it definitely feels weird. You didn't ask.
I've never been called upon first. Yeah. I was startled.
I was struck.
Doug asked about the tight ends. We really Freaky Friday'd it on a Thursday.
It was definitely different. But I think when you look at this line group, again, we sort of talked about it last week, but with all of the moving parts, with all of the guys being out, it's very hard to get a sense of who's able to step up. But like if one guy is not missing time, or in this case, it's not a surprise. The two guys who have been the most consistent are the ones that haven't missed any time. Like that's pretty simple math. So it does seem fairly cut and dried. Seth McLaughlin is your starting center. I agree. I think that we are now firmly in the Tegra Shabola should be the expected starter at right guard. Your offensive line set. The biggest news to me on the offensive line, if we're just going to go position by position here of what we heard, was the just straight up, well, Austin Sierreveld's a tackle now. Like, oh, okay. All right. Because if you watched Austin Sierreveld as a high schooler coming out of Lakota East, like, dude has like tree trunk legs. And you're like, that's
he's a guard.
That's a Big Ten guard.
He's a guard.
And so I don't know if they're trying to talk themselves into that or if he has just absolutely had a athletic transformation that maybe we haven't. He's looked good when we've seen him.
He looks great. Yeah.
And there was a lot of praise for him even a year ago from the coaching staff about his development, but that was a surprise to me. And then very positive words about Zen Michalski, saying that it seems like it's finally clicking there. George Fitzpatrick, who we are all high on, I think, has missed, that seems like probably the second most amount of time other than Carson Hinsman, if I'm just trying to parse.
Trying to figure it out. I think you're right.
So, the depth is coming into view, but the change for Austin Sierreveld is most interesting to me. But it goes to what you asked about, which is you have a lot of interior guard depth, and who's your other tackles? So
I became confused by the answer because Ryan Day was like, yes, I agree with you.
But no,
I don't want to do that. I was like,
I think you don't. It's like you don't want to entertain the situation that would require you to play Tegra tackle.
Yeah, like losing to Iowa,
to Iowa and Oregon, right?
Why would you do that?
But if it were to happen, it's like,
stupid.
that's like we would have that conversation. I think is what he was trying to.
I think what he's saying is we need Tegra Shabola to be a really good guard,
which is true.
And if he has to focus on learning two spots at once, we're not getting what we need out of him. So, like, you keep your fingers crossed that nothing happens that requires that sort of.
Yeah, I just think it becomes a conversation because Austin Siereveld, this is not the first mention I think that any of us have heard about him making the most of that opportunity at left tackle. Maybe it's just a product of the way he's battled. Like this went better than they thought. I think the projection would still be for him at guard. And if you wind up in a conversation where it's like, well, Tegra has actually spent more time at tackle, you know what the physical tools are, and then you could replace the right guard spot with Carson Hensman or Luke Montgomery or Austin Siereveld or whatever you want to do. There is a surplus there that simply doesn't exist at tackle. And I can understand Ryan Day not wanting to be like, hey, let's have a conversation about if these starting tackles aren't available. Like no one wants to live in that world, but I do feel like that's the most likely outcome.
I also don't want to like sound like I'm putting down Austin Sierveld's athleticism or potential. Like he made a decision between Ohio State, Alabama, and Notre Dame. Like when he committed to Ohio State, like the kid, people saw something there early, and you can tell he was pretty good at Lakota East. But like this is a step up that we didn't see. I didn't expect to see that. A year into his arrival on campus.
No, I wondered, someone asked about this on the board of rivals the other day, like, is he playing tackle because, like, they didn't have anybody else to do it, or, like, can he actually play it? My answer was, like, I don't know that he has the length to do it. And then I think Chip Kelly said, like, no, he's pretty, like, he has the arm length to play tackle. He doesn't look like a tackle.
No, we saw him playing out here a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
But that was the day when they had 10 offensive linemen.
Right.
So
there was no choice then.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, anything that we're seeing could be true. It could be false, but he is over 6, like he's legit 6'5", almost 6'5 and a half. Like he has the size.
310,
he has the size, but I was not convinced as his recruitment unfolded that he was a guy that had the requisite footwork / athleticism to be a left tackle. The length is not in question. The size is not in question, and the strength is not in question. But I guess when you're 6'5" and 315 pounds and you can move a little bit, I guess the world just opens up for you.
It does.
Well, you push the door open.
Oh.
You break it down.
Chip Kelly saying the big guys beat up the little guys is one of the better. I'll tell you, I'm just going to go off on this now.
It's Freaky Friday. Do it.
Dude, how awesome is it to listen to Chip Kelly talk about football?
It's great.
Pretty awesome.
Like, how much did we miss Kevin Wilson last year? Because I'm telling you what, like the coaches that were head coaches before, the insight that they have and the way that they are able to deal with that room is so much different than the guys who haven't been. And I'm telling you.
Also, they have the cachet to say what is actually happening.
And whatever they want.
And also not the blowback of actually being that coach.
I just think it's truly refreshing. And like Kevin Wilson was that way. Chip Kelly. I think we talked a little bit last year about, is this team missing Kevin Wilson? Are we not giving enough credence to how much they're missing Kevin Wilson? And I really think Chip Kelly is just an absolute grand slam for Ryan Day.
He gave some new acronym on Thursday. I don't even know what it was.
I thought that was Latin.
I don't know.
You took like 14 years of Latin. I thought that
I did. It wasn't Latin.
That wasn't a Latin word.
I have no idea what it was. I still don't know.
What did he say?
I'm gonna have to even slow the tape.
Vicariously derive
enjoyment,
joy from something.
From watching, enjoying, sharing, success.
It was like
IVDJ. I don't know. Either way,
J.
VNVDG.
It's not one that's going to work on a bracelet.
No. Well, I don't know. You could like loop it around twice, maybe. There's so many
slap
ways.
bracelet.
I don't know, but it was great. It was great to hear from him. It was awesome. A lot of information. Talked about that with the quarterbacks. He referenced the offensive line battle, and then I wanted to know a little bit more. I keep trying to like sneak in more insight on what's going to happen with the Emeka Egbuka, and then to a maybe slightly lesser extent, Brandon Ennis. And he was like, it's like, who could we learn from? Is there something from Oregon, something from the Eagles, maybe probably lesser from the NFL and more from UCLA or Oregon? And he's like, well, Emeka is kind of his own thing, and he's going to be able to run the football. He's going to be able to block. He's going to do stuff in the slot. You can move him outside. He's going to make contested catches. But that sounds like it's probably a lot of fun for an offensive coordinator, and Chip Kelly basically agreed with that.
Yeah, that makes me feel even better about believing that he's sort of going to be the chess piece, like the guy that's kind of all kind of intertwined through. I guess, I don't know. With all he can do, blocking linebackers, man. He's a receiver. but he'll do it, right? Yeah,
He's beefy.
He'll do whatever you want.
Yeah. He's going to run Doug and I did like a Heisman thing this week on Kings of the North, and I was like kicking around Emeka just because of everything he might do for this offense. I ultimately settled on Quinshon Judkins being a more reasonable pick at this moment, but
Over
Will
Howard?
Yeah. If it's like the middle of October,
He's wrong.
Yeah, I don't think I am. And I think Will will be very good. He'll win the Heisman. Don't worry about it. Emeka might be that guy because he's going to be pretty fun to watch week after week after week with all he's going to do.
I think I remember you talking yourself into a Garrett Wilson Heisman campaign once upon a time.
I voted for him in 2022.
I think Emeka's usage, and we'll see what the course of the year looks like in terms of raw numbers, but I think his importance to Ohio State's offense is going to, don't want this to sound like hyperbole because of Garrett, he was so good, but I think he's going to dwarf the importance of Garrett Wilson for this offense.
I think you're just going to look at that stat sheet, you're like, man, he had 1,300 receiving yards and 400 rushing yards, and he had 25 touchdowns. That's kind of crazy.
If he has 25 touchdowns, he's going to win the Heisman.
I think Quinshon Judkins is going to have 30 rushing touchdowns.
So it's getting spicy.
It'll be a great back and forth.
It's not even a bold piece show yet.
Holy moly.
This is
30?
Yeah, it's been done.
How many times?
That would be the 6th.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
not here.
I was going to say, it's never been done here.
I don't recall seeing that.
Blake Corum had 27 last year.
That's a lot. Yeah, but they made sure to give him touchdowns.
Yeah, but if like every Ohio State touchdown drive that's not a 40-yard completion to Jeremiah Smith is just going to end with a Quinshon Judkins.
What about Emeka Egbuka?
Well, he'll score too. He's going to have 25. Quinshon's going to have 30. Jeremiah's going to have 50.
Okay.
And Ohio State is going to have the highest scoring offense anyone's ever seen.
105 touchdowns.
This is going to be a wild year.
I thought there was some good conversation about the wide receiver room on Thursday. Ryan Day, glowing about Kojo Antwi is something that I don't know that it's one of the, I don't think anybody would have had that on their bingo card, but the reality is he's a kid in his third year that's pretty important to the mental makeup of this team, wide receiver. I wrote about Emeka Egbuka earlier this week and his value away from just touchdowns and yards. But when you have a guy like Kojo who has been here, like I said, heading into year 3, but has not played, has no reason to be really loved up on other than the fact that he's emerging as a good leader and a good role model for the other guys. That's a really positive thing. Brian Day mentioned Emeka Egbuka as the punt returner.
Yep.
But then
no, both.
But then he talked about Brandon Inniss as the punt returner, which I think will be the punt returner for the majority of the season for Ohio State. So
wonder who said that was going to happen.
I did.
You said it was going to be Caleb Downs.
Tune into Akron or bold predictions when Austin says Brandon Inniss is going to punt return.
I said it in the spring. America, pull up the tape. Show him that I talked about Brandon Inniss as the punt returner back in the spring and how it was necessary.
You're both pretty. It's okay.
Okay? Yes, Caleb Downs is going to return some punts, including one for a touchdown. But he's not going to be the full-time punt returner. He should be, but he won't be.
This is a Freaky Friday. We are getting off the rails and throwing out crazy cold peas all over the place.
Anything else on the wide receivers that you were like, oh, interesting? Did I not hear Jaden Ballard's name, or was I just...
he did, yeah.
He remembered it late, and he was like, Jaden, if he can be more consistent, we'll get in there. But he went, unless I'm mistaken, he's named Bryson Rogers. Then he went to Kojo Antwi with the talk about him coming along and how much he liked that. And then there was an aside about Mylan Graham, and then he was like, and if Jaden Ballard can do some things. I'm not taking that as listing them in order. I thought that initially with Bryson Rogers. It's difficult for me, I know what they're talking about with the inconsistency from Jaden Ballard. We've talked about it for 3 years. I can't imagine that he's 8th. That can't be right.
No, I think it's 4, and then talk to me that week about who's made a move, right? I think that can be a little fluid too. I thought what he said about Mylan Graham was interesting though. It was Mylan kind of went through I'm a freshman, I don't really know what I'm doing kind of thing a couple days ago in camp, and I think Ryan Day said he's had a really good last 5 days, was a champion in the scrimmage on Saturday, so not surprising. We all knew he was going to be good when he got here, but it seems like he's starting to get his feet under him.
Emeka was the player of the game in that scrimmage on Saturday. We had not had any official confirmation on that. Defensively, it was Arvell Reese who's doing one of these. That's a stock up.
Yeah, but I don't know to what end, right?
Sure.
Is Cody is he going to push Cody Simon off the field? It's just I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't know what to make of the Arvell Reese sudden rise, but I'm excited about it, and I'm trying to preemptively keep myself from getting upset about him not playing as much as I want him to this fall. But I just don't know what that means for him in 2024.
I'm getting pretty geeked at the idea of Arvell and Garrett Stover on special teams on kickoff return coverage, because I think that there will be some fun.
They're going to have to protect themselves.
Well, that was Arvell's problem a year ago. Hopefully he's learned how to do that a little bit better. But
could you see is there a scenario where it's not even close to pure rotation? Like Cody Simon is playing 95% of the high leverage Mike linebacker snaps, but in the fourth series, you might throw Arvell Reese out there.
Because you can move Cody over to the will.
You can play with Cody at will.
And that's what we talked about a lot in the offseason. It's you can get experience without taking your veteran off the field. You don't have to take Cody Simon off the field to get Arvell Reese reps or to get CJ Hicks reps. Or you don't have to do that. So, yeah, I think that
plus he's the green dot, so you're going to want him out there most of the time.
Right, if we're taking James Laurinaitis at his word, which is, to this point, we have no reason not to. If you're ready to play, you're going to play. Mm-hmm. So I think that James Laurinaitis will bring a very NFL mentality to linebacker play, which is you're out there for 5 snaps in a row. We need someone else out there for 2. I really think that that's the way it's going. I don't think we're going to see if someone's had a 14-play drive against Ohio State, the same linebacker is out there the whole time. I just don't see it.
All right, I'm excited about Arvell Reese again. Good job.
I want fun, upbeat Professor Knowles to return. He
seems sullen, doesn't
I don't know what's...
Well, apparently the Saturday scrimmage wasn't the best day for the defense.
Yeah, the offense won a few days, and now he's he doesn't want to talk about anything.
Yeah.
I love, because Jim Knowles goes in the exact same conversation.
He stopped drinking coffee, it seems like.
You think?
Oh, maybe that's it.
And last couple times we've seen him, he's not had coffee.
Have a cup today,
no coffee.
So I do wonder if he's just a little less...
just tired in the middle of the dog days of camp?
Yeah.
Because I love and learn so much from Jim Knowles talking, and today, Thursday, yesterday, whenever that was, I don't know. He didn't seem to be quite himself, and I just...
He was the same self he was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so we're worried about safety depth, I guess. He's preoccupied with that because I'm told it's a safety-driven defense.
Yeah, I'm not reading too much into Jim Knowles' disposition.
I'm not. It's not concerned because this is the best defense in the country. I'm just saying I would love it.
I think because it is the best defense in the country, it's just there's not a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I have concerns about Jim Knowles' disposition because I think that it seems like someone kicked his dog.
I hope not.
When asked about the rotation, Billy tried to pull it out of him. If we're going base, can you still be dynamic and change things up if you're still using the base 4 down linemen? And
he said, that's my job.
And it's man, I just feel like he is wanting I think he has less hair now than he did in the spring because whatever hair he had left, I think he's pulled out.
He has hair still. It's on the sides at least. He keeps it pretty tight.
He just seems like he's boxing with one arm behind his back a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder that. That's what I asked him. I said, if you want to do all these things, be creative, disguise more, but stay in 4 down, at some point I feel like that has to become restrictive. I think restrictive is probably the wrong word to use because I think that kind of gets
limiting. Maybe we'll try this again next time.
You have to.
But that's the reality. That's what else is there to call it, right? I don't know. But
he could have said, "Well, I don't feel like it's restrictive." He said, "No, that's just my job to figure out." When he said it that way, Bill, I don't know if you agree with this or not. I felt like he was conceding your point.
I think so too.
He tried, I think, half-heartedly to push against it, but if he didn't challenge the word, he didn't say, well, we may still be able to do this or that. He said he had to figure it out based on that, which is just, I don't think any of us, I'll speak for the 3 of us, it doesn't make any sense that you wouldn't be able to find solutions outside of just that one thing.
I agree. But we're also probably beating a dead horse because I don't think it's going to change.
That horse is dead as hell.
All right, it is. All right. Anything else?
Tight ends.
Tight ends?
Will Kasmarek was the first name that came out of Ryan Day's mouth.
He said G's been in and out.
In and out. Jelani, we need Jelani to like be a dude for us. Bennett Christian had a good couple days, I think. Sounds like Pat Gerd's going to play. But I thought it was, hey, when he went tight ends, first name was Will Kasmarek. I thought that was telling.
Do you recall any, maybe I'm a victim of recency bias here or whatever, but a version of whether Ryan Day or Urban Meyer here where they have ever seemed more willing to call out individual players to say, you have got to...
I think Urban did that quite a bit.
Like individual players or position groups? Because this seems like this specific instance of Jelani Thurman, I don't know that I've recalling a coach at Ohio State being so direct and saying, we need this person to be the guy he was for these 5 minutes of practice. Like, it just seems different. Am I wrong?
Maybe. I think there's probably...
Maybe I'm wrong?
No. I think,
maybe you're right.
I think maybe you're right. I wonder if that's just a byproduct of how experienced this team is, that you feel like you can do that a little more. Like, it's not wrong. The whole guy's accountable. And it's not like he was dogging him the whole time. He said, like, I love being around him in practice. His energy is incredible. We just need him to be far more consistent than he's been, because we know that if he is, he's going to be an absolute dog. So,
I just feel like we're getting another horse that is dead and bleeding over there.
Oh gosh! Like somebody clean that up.
The Ryan Day, the different Ryan Day we're getting, because he does not have to be the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, head coach all at once. Like, I think he's maybe noticing these things that he didn't or couldn't notice before.
He's like a better feel for, like,
and it just seems like he is much more dialed into the individual players around.
He's definitely, I think probably, I think it would be wrong to assume that he wasn't watching every single position as soon as he went off the field and started watching tape practice. Like, he's the head coach, and he certainly would have been doing that with Mylan Graham or Jelani Thurman. I think but if you're trying to lead a position group at the same time, I think that can narrow your focus, to your point. But he seems much more in tune with what's going on collectively in the locker room and on defense, like, than he has been in the past. I don't know that means that there was an unwillingness to challenge players in the past. But if you had, I think what's interesting about it now is that you've mentioned this before, where you have to massage egos and worry about playing time, and you have NIL and the transfer portal. I am a little bit surprised that he has no fear of that.
I almost wonder if that's part of the decision, is to say, because again, I like to end shows on hypothetical bad news.
Oh, good.
Let's say,
what's it going to be today?
Let's say we're here in February and people are wondering, why the hell did Jelani transfer, right?
Oh, God.
So it allows Ryan Day or the program to look back and be like, we were trying to tell you what part of the issue was, or why he wasn't on the field as much as people thought he should be. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Sure.
So to speak.
I guess.
You get what I'm saying? You catch my drift?
Catch my drift, yeah.
So to speak. I think I'm getting you guys to agree with my point here.
I do not think that was in any way whatsoever
Really?
Ryan Day's motivation.
Ah, man.
I think he was trying to tell us the truth about it.
I'm not saying it's part of the motivation. I'm saying that if things don't end up going the way that you're hoping they do, it's now a matter of public record to say, we were imploring him to be more...
I mean, he's also a freaking sophomore, right?
I will say...
I'm not saying Jelani individually here. I'm saying any player that does.
I will say this, Brent.
Concede.
Having it publicly on the record will be an ancillary benefit. One reason that I think that right now you may be right about the different tone publicly is that we have had multiple examples in players or situations, anything else over the last couple of years, where what was going to be said publicly by Ohio State did not match up with the tough love mantra that the program professes to be about. Now, I can understand if that's not the venue that they want to participate in that. But I feel like even behind closed doors, they have maybe not taken that in terms of playing time or opportunities. I don't know everything that's said back there. That's the perception that I've had, that's what they want, the tough love and honest conversation. They want this program to be based on that. And I have felt like there have been times in certain situations where that has maybe not been true. And there's everything that has been evaluated, everything that's put on the table, everything has been pushed into the middle for this particular season. And if they found maybe that was the case, maybe that wasn't the case,
Yeah.
Maybe there has been a change in that approach. I think for Ryan Day specifically, he's doing it differently. You're right. Has it never been done here? I think Urban was pretty critical of his roster. Like, he was a master manipulator and knew all the psychological...
You mean motivator?
Sure. Yep.
Fine line between the two.
You can manipulate motivation.
You can motivate manipulation.
There you have it.
We figured it out.
Anyway.
I'm just saying, I think you're right. That's a good way to bring that around. I do think that it's hard to preach tough love if you're sitting around going, well, if we say this, he might have his feelings hurt. And so now you have to start realizing everything's public now. Like, the reality is, if kids don't like their playing time, they're going to tell someone, and it's going to be public anyway. If so, it's better, I think, to put all this out on display and say the private is public. So
this team went so far as a year ago to remove the champions from the weekly press release. For what purpose? You should be celebrating the best of your program.
Think about how many tweets didn't get sent last year. Every Monday, Tuesday.
You can say that
thinking about the clout.
You can say that that's like a really stupid thing for me to dwell on or even remember, and maybe that's true. But if you're trying to uphold the standard, what you do privately should match, I think, what you do publicly. That doesn't mean that you talk about every single thing that happens in the program. I'm not saying that, but something as clear as listing a champion for a game.
It's listed on the inside of the building, so why would it not be? Yeah,
and it was because well, I don't know. I don't want to get a call from this person's parent, or they're not going to get called out, or people are going to question them on social media, or whatever justification they would use for that. That to me did not feel like tough love. So again, Jelani Thurman is not being roasted here.
They're talking about his upside. I don't think anything about what Ryan Day said about Jelani Thurman was like even remotely critical.
I don't think it is. I'm saying I'm just saying you put it out there They
don't usually say we need this guy to find more consistency. We got to rely on him. I think that's.
I don't think it's a negative. I mean, as a former athlete, I wanted to hear that from coaches. I want direct feedback. I want constructive criticism. That's who I think that's how you grow. And Ryan Day, we've seen a number of social media clips and quotes. He wants these guys to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That is new from what the last 5 years were.
Bill, maybe Jelani is the wrong way into this conversation, but I don't know that it changes the way I feel about a change right now to other years.
I think that's right. But I think there is a mindset change probably, but I also think it's also partly what Berm said earlier about Ryan Day just kind of having a better handle on a lot of stuff. So he is equipped to give answers like that when we ask like that. I thought the Thursday press conference from Ryan Day was the most specific about the most people he's ever been in the press conference, because he clearly just is around different position groups and just knows more. So he's willing to share it a little bit. I think it is reflective of a change of mindset as well, but I think it's not a large part of it is that new dynamic for him. Yeah.
There's another example of that where he was like, I think Bryson Rodgers is trying to get to 187 pounds. I've never heard him reference wide receiver specifics for their goals or weights or any of that stuff. He could rattle off anything at any time for the quarterbacks. That's where he spent most of the time. And I'm not saying that he was shirking any responsibility as the head coach of the program by not being able to do that. Just pointing out a difference.
It just may have been in one ear and out the other a year ago or beyond that. When
you only have so much bandwidth, right?
Right. When you're thinking, okay, what's the 3rd and 4 call? And, if we're inside of the 10 at Notre Dame, those are things he had to be thinking about before. Now you have a chance to be a much different type of head coach. And obviously I'm biased. I grew up rooting for this program and wanting it to succeed. I think that if you could just take an outside view looking in, the Ryan Day experience at Ohio State is one that I think from a head coaching, if you wrote a book about everything that's happened to him and to college football in the 6 years he's been here, I think that it's fascinating. I don't know of any head coach that for their first job has had to go through everything he's had to go through.
Right.
And I just think it's a really interesting look we get into his psychology every single week. So I like we're getting more and more of the real.
Yeah, and we got to the end of another week, breaking it down. This was quite freaky Friday. Went ways that we weren't expecting, but that's part of the fun here on the podcast daily.
Quinshon Judkins, 30 touchdowns. Make your bets.
I would probably take under 30, but Bill's coming at it from a place of
Love,
well-intentioned love and respect.
Just fired up about this team running the ball.
He's ready for that. We're ready to get back in here for another week. There's going to be 3 nights in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center as school gets back in for Ohio State. Practice schedule shifts a little bit, but that's going to do it for this week in here on the Podcast Daily. This was Freaky Friday. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. We'll talk to you on Monday. We'll see you.